Swallow your soul!
Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn.
Well, the reaction to making the sequel to Evil Dead was probably relief, because, you know, the second movie that we made was called Crime Wave, and I believe in France it was Mort sur le Grill, Death on the Grill. It was because it was a silly comedy, and it failed at the box office and really was a bomb. And so I think it was a natural thing to go, we should make an Evil Dead movie.
Now, from the creator of Evil Dead comes Evil Dead 2.
Interestingly enough, we were trying to put the money together for Evil Dead 2. And at the time, even Coca-Cola was thinking of buying a movie company. And so we were thinking of maybe getting some money from one source. And get this, the author, Stephen King, is making a movie in North Carolina with Dino De Laurentiis, Maximum Overdrive, okay? I think he directed that.
He directed this one.
Okay, so they're out to dinner and they're talking, and Stephen King finds out that we were having, from somebody else, he found out that we were having problems getting financing, and he mentioned this to Dino De Laurentiis. He said, Dino, you've got to get involved in this. You need to make this movie. And the next day, Dino De Laurentiis called and said, come in for a meeting. So we came in for a meeting, and Dino's favorite expression is, that means that the deal is done. You know, we had a deal in about 20 minutes.
No way.
C'est vrai. Because what they did is Dino is a very clever man. He's bought and sold movies overseas for years. He took a look at what Evil Dead did in France and Germany and Spain and Italy, you know, and England, and he said, okay. And so we made money on Evil Dead 2 before we started to film. Dino was not concerned what the story was. We knew we had to try something different, and so we paired him up with a good friend of ours, Scott Spiegel, who co-wrote the movie. And Sam and Scott worked really well together as a team, we thought. And they would just come up with crazy stuff, and we knew that it'd be bizarre, and then we knew we would have to check it over to make sure it could all be afforded.
In the year 1300 AD, the book disappeared.
I don't really know what it is. I just know that, unfortunately, some people, the way we presented it, some people thought that the character Ash was stupid enough to go back to the cabin again with a new girlfriend, as though he had so much fun the first time, you know? But so people misinterpreted how it all went together. But see, we had a problem. Each of the Evil Dead movies is owned by a different company. And sometimes they say, no, you can't have the footage. No, you can't license it, you know, or they want too much money. So you have to make up your own footage. It's very bizarre.
Is it the reason why it has no more sequels?
No, I think it's the word Spider-Man is the reason for no more sequels. The first time I saw Sam Raimi was sitting in junior high school, for us, 8th grade. And he was sitting in the hallway dressed as the great investigator Sherlock Holmes, with the pipe and the hat and the silly hat.
Halloween or
And he was playing with dolls. And he claimed that he was making a video, but video was very primitive in this time and hard to do. I didn't believe him, so I avoided him. I went way around him in the hallway. And then later we met in drama class in high school in 1975. We had a couple exercises that we would have to do for the class, in drama class. You would have to do a pantomime, you know, this sort of thing. And both of our skills were very rudimentary, and I think we commiserated with each other of like, hey pal, yours kind of stunk. And he went, yeah, so did yours, you know. And I think we just enjoyed each other's sensibilities, and Sam was very outrageous. He was more like Jerry Lewis then than he is now. Sam and I worked on a lot of these amateur movies in high school together, along with Scott Spiegel too. A Civil War movie, war movies, detective films, period movies, a lot of comedies, very silly comedies. Always capers, a James Bond spoof, big.
Wow. But what did you find the time to do that?
That's all we did. I didn't date. There were no women in my life. No, nothing. I didn't go to the prom. I didn't go there. We were busy filming Friday nights and Saturday nights, and we would work during the week to make money to work on weekends to make those movies.
Any regrets?
No.
Yeah.
No, because it kept me away from crack cocaine and things like that.
And girls?
And girls, unfortunately. The girls, I would have liked to have more of that. Because there's the perception if you make movies, then it's...
That's not true?
No.
Really?
No, because you're too busy working. There's no time for amour. There is a perception that it is a movie made in college by college students. And it isn't really the case. It was a complete business venture, but it was very low budget and we were very inexperienced. So it was, and we were under-financed when we shot. On our legal document, we were supposed to get $150,000 together. We got to $85,000 and we were squeezing rocks, for blood. Nothing happened. We filmed it cheaper than we wanted to, So unfortunately, yeah, it's a low budget movie. But see, we didn't make money from the Evil Dead movies, Rob and myself and Sam Raimi, until within the last 5 or 10 years, really, because most of the investors got paid back before anybody profited, and it took them a long time to get their money back before we did. We changed actors, we changed states, we changed locations, we changed budgets, we changed everything for the second one, except me. Because I was one of the producers, Where was I going to go? They couldn't get rid of me.
There's something down there!
Part 2 was 10 times more expensive. It's about $3.5 million.
But the feeling was the same on the set?
No, the feeling was better. Because in the first Evil Dead, we were very inexperienced. We didn't know how to schedule of when you shoot something, so that it's organized and so that you shoot everything in the cabin at the same time. We would go back and forth and night and day, and we knew a little bit about scheduling, but it was unorganized. And we didn't know how to spend money correctly and keep track of it. There was no computers. It was all written down. It was a mess to be sorted out years later,
The work itself?
Not the work. No, the work was... I thought Sam was doing some fun stuff. In the first one, he was very experimental at times. Whole sequences he would dream up the night before, and that's unorthodox, Nowadays, directors, it's planning, storyboards. Sam would just come up with something, and then we'd shoot it. But the second one was much more of... working with an assistant director to help you schedule your day, and then hiring proper accountants, and you working with the Screen Actors Guild now. We were all guild members, and there were new rules and regulations, and we had to be organized. Everyone was more prepared. It wasn't just Sam. Everyone had to do things different. Oh, of course. I had to prep, and I had to get in shape and work out, and We also prepped for the right amount of time. Everything was right. The money was better. We were making a living by that point. Crime Wave, we had learned a lot of good mistakes from. And so it was a pretty good shoot. It was hard, but organized. Sam is not concerned about whether I get hurt or not. So when he writes, he just, and then he knows that we can do it, or figure out a way to do it. Of course, now it would be, Spider-Man is all digital. See, I miss the digital. if Evil Dead had been made now, I would have been spared a lot of bruises and broken things.
Did you get hurt seriously on the movie?
Never got hurt. I got cut. I got a new scar. I have a scar on my chin here, but that's old. This is I got a new scar from Army of Darkness because I flipped a stuntman down some stairs, and I had a piece of my breastplate armor jammed into me, and as the stuntman pushed into it, you know. And so I went to the emergency room to get stitched up as Ash in full costume.
You must have
And I had 8 other cuts, you know, from just because of continuity from the other things that happened to me in the movie. But so this one didn't look any different. The guy the doctor was, which one is it? I had to show it to him. So we felt good about that our makeup was good.
What's some reaction when you get hurt? Is it like, okay, let's go now, let's work?
Well, he's like, well, what can we shoot while Bruce is getting stitched up? You know, you have to keep filming. And then I came back that night and we just kept filming.
Really?
Yeah, because I just have one more cut. You couldn't even, if you looked at my face, you couldn't tell that one more had been added. Because it was the same, you know, it was a red scar.
Physically, what was the most difficult scene of the second one?
Oh, physically, it was just the time of it. It was 12 weeks. We were filming in North Carolina, which is in the southern part of the States, very hot, very humid, in the middle of the summer, on an elevated set. We built a set in a gymnasium that had no air conditioning, and we built the basement on the actual basement of the cabin we built on the first floor, and we actually built the cabin level on the second floor. It was a 2-story set. And we were up here, so of course the warm air is up there, so it was all just about heat. It was just sweating and drinking Gatorade. And Sam's poor brother, Ted Raimi, played the monster Henrietta. No actor has been abused more than him. Every time I feel bad about something, I think of him. He had a suit that took 5 hours to get into. First it's a suit, you know, and then they have to blend the edges in your face and put it on and connect it, you know. It's not, they just don't zip something up and send you out. 5 hours, so he had to get up at 3 in the morning, you know. While we were filming, before any of us got up, he had been in there for hours, you know. So then they put him in a harness because there's one scene where he has to be spinning in the air up in the cabin. So he's now in the upper level. He's already been 5 hours he's been working. They put him in a harness, put the contact lenses in his eyes. He cannot see. And now he's starting to sweat and feeling faint. And they have a bottle of oxygen so that when he is not filming, he would sit on a box and it would be like this, with a thing of Gatorade, just this of just drinking it and drinking it. And so they hoisted him up, and they would spin him around in this, and the sweat would fly off of his body. It would spatter people as we spun him around. And at the end of the day, the makeup effects people, they collected his sweat. He had monster boots. They would take the boots and pour it into cups, and they would fill up 2 and 3 cups of his sweat and put it on a shelf. So Ted Raimi sweat for Evil Dead Part 2. You can't put an old woman through that. And Sam went, I know, my brother. He made him pay.
Was it the most exhausting movie you've ever done?
Oh yes. I had milk in my refrigerator. You know they have an expiration date? The date of when my milk was to go bad was our last day of shooting. And I'd smell the milk every day, you know, hoping that it would go bad. When I couldn't wait for that milk to become rancid.
Let's go.
Well, I have a theory that a movie that is easy to make is hard to watch. And then a movie that is hard to make is easy to watch.
What's the easiest movie you've ever done?
A film called Sundown, A Vampire in Retreat. A very obscure movie from 1988.
Anthony Hickox?
Yeah, Anthony Hickox. It was shot in Moab, Utah. And I love the West. I love the country, you know, and I only had to work 2 days a week. And other days I would get a mountain bike and just disappear and take crazy hikes. I would even leave my bike. I would just throw it down and walk in the desert. And it was great. I didn't have to work much. Honestly, because of the first Evil Dead movie, I got very used to being the only person looking around a house or fighting with one monster or something. It becomes normal. Army of Darkness was different, part 3, because now you were back to having a lot of people. So it was a different thing. Evil Dead 2 is the most solitary. Well, you know, when you're fighting a monster, how do you know how to play that? You know, how do you know? How do you know how you're supposed to react or act? So you just do it. You just try it. And everything is very ridiculous in those movies, so it's hard not to act larger. And, you know, a lot of it is, it's not as though Sam wasn't on the set. You know, because sometimes people think the actor does it all by themselves. And, you know, there's many cases where nowadays he brings actors down these days. But back then it would be, no, more, you know, like Dario Argento, you know, more, blood. I'm being paid to entertain, that's what I say. And I think you match the material. If you are doing Terms of Endearment, then you would act a certain way. If you're doing a movie called Evil Dead Part 2, it's a horror movie. It's fantastic, you know, it's all crazy. Same with Sam. If you look at his movie Evil Dead 2, the camera is, you know, and then look at his movie A Simple Plan, and it's like this. Very slow, very deliberate, you know? So I think you just have to match the material.
What kind of influence do you have on the movie itself?
Just lines here and there, you know, but an attitude. Well, lines like "swallow this" from Part 2, you know. He says, "Swallow yourself, swallow yourself." I said, "Sam, why don't I just say swallow this?" Because there was no line, he just blew him away.
I'll swallow your soul. I'll swallow your soul. I'll swallow your soul.
Swallow this.
And did you feel that you have a very different Ash in the 3 movies?
Yeah. The first one, he's just an idiot. In Part 1, he is just part of the 5 college kids who doesn't have any more abilities than anybody. And he's the survivor, just by chance, really, because the one capable man gets possessed. And then in Part 2, he's like a veteran from a war, you know. He knows what you have to do. And he becomes, unwittingly, the leader. And he becomes more assertive. And then by Part 3, he is the ugly American. You know, he is the loudmouth braggart. The audience feels very differently about the 3 movies because some just like the blood, you know, of Part 1. Just the chop, 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 splatter everywhere. That's what they want. Some like Part 2, Evil Dead 2, because it is a mixture of horror and some comedy. And then some like Army of Darkness, some people who can't handle all the blood, because Army of Darkness is very fanciful and it, you know, it's silly, it's an adventure.
What's your favorite?
I like Part 2.
Really?
Yes, because it is a good blend of the abilities of us as filmmakers with just the right amount of money, but still it was an independent movie. It was not really a studio movie. It was like an expensive independent movie. What is important about a movie is that it succeed with an audience. You know, we just want them to like what we're doing, and so the reward is for them to enjoy it. And we were I went to promote the movie through the United States, a couple of different cities. One of them was New Orleans, when the movie first came out. And I sat in a movie theater when they played it, and at one point there's a scene where a monster is in the basement, and I jump up on a trap door and it squeezes his head, and you know, the eye pops out and flies across and goes into a girl's mouth. There were two men who were watching that, got up and ran out into the lobby. They left. And so, no, I went to see. I thought maybe they were ill. But when I got out into the lobby, they were laughing so hard. They were slapping each other on the back. They couldn't breathe. They were laughing so hard. So the movie gets a very strange reaction. It's some part funny, some part very gross. So we call it splatstick.
This cult based around the movie. How do you explain that?
Well, I think my reason is that they're popular sometimes because they're very irreverent. The lead, you know, the character Ash isn't concerned about how people feel. He takes chances. He's makes huge mistakes, horrible mistakes. I think the audience can look at him and say, he is not Bruce Willis. He is not Arnold Schwarzenegger. I could be him, you know? You see Arnold Schwarzenegger, you go, he's in the gym all the time. He just, you know, that's all he does is he lifts weights. And the average viewer I don't think you can relate to that. But anyone could do as good a job as Ash. Well, I had a man of about 17 come up, and when I wrote a book, I was at a book signing, and he threw my book down on the table, and he says, sign my book. And he was being a little rude, you know. And I said, oh, sure, okay, what's your name? He says, my name is Ash. And I said, ha, 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 very funny, because I had heard that before. And I said, what's your name? He goes, my name is Ash. My parents named me after your stupid movie. So it's been strange to meet people who are named after you, after a character you played, but only they're stuck with it. I'm not stuck with Ash. They're stuck with it. Cruel parents.
The best and worst thing that Evil Dead, the trilogy, brought you?
The best thing that it brought was just steady employment on and off for, you know, a couple of years. And then the worst thing is only if someone perceives that that's all you've ever done. Because sometimes whatever is the most popular, they always associate you with that. But I don't really have a problem with it because I was involved in making them. I was a responsible member of the company. I knew what was happening. So it wasn't like, oh gosh, I got suckered into this thing that I can't get out of now. You know, I knew what was happening. It was our way into the film business.